The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
It's the Best Birth Podcast, where we interview experts that elevate you as you prepare your heart and mind to have the best birth.
Each episode will interview professionals so you are prepared for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Our experts will build your confidence and empower you to trust your intuition throughout your pregnancy.
This audio is taken from videos on YouTube. Watch the entire episodes on YouTube at Birth Made Mindful. Welcome to the Best Birth Podcast. We're here today with our episode. Ellie Morris is our expert. She is a health coach and will be teaching us how to love the way you look and feel.
Ellie is a health coach from the Life Coach School and a mom of 3 kids, 5 chickens, and 1 yellow lab in Denver, Colorado. She loves all things healthy living, but also loves a good taco and night out with friends or her husband. Her passions include yoga, cooking, baking, biking, reading rom-coms, and anything that gives her deeper human connection. Welcome, Ellie. I love that. My highest value, too, is connection. So I'm grateful we can have this connective conversation with you.
Yay. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I think people are going to absolutely love this topic and conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, we want to kind of jump right in and tell us how you became a health coach and a life coach. What was your journey like arriving at what you're doing now?
I actually followed a coach from the Life Coach School, but she created a program for coaches. So it's very similar, but it's not quite. We're actually certified in a process called the framework. But just for simplicity, I wanted to just clarify that for anyone who listens and is like, oh, this is a difference. But so I will say I found coaching when I felt completely desperate in my business. And I didn't realize that finding coaching through business would actually permeate into all areas of my life. So I had felt really stuck making a certain income level in my social selling business. And as a last ditch resort, I joined this coaching program and learned about this process called the model. And I will say I was doing all the right things. And I promise you, this actually does connect back to how we take care of ourselves in pregnancy and life, postpartum and all the things. But I was doing all the right things. And it was actually my thoughts and my energy that were not aligned with what I was doing. And so as soon as I learned about coaching and started getting coached and self-coaching, within 90 days, I doubled my income. I grew my team. I was invited into my first mastermind. A year after that, I was invited to do a training in front of 100 people on thought work and how that impacts your life. And then a year after that, I was accepted to speak in front of close to 1,000 people on the power of coaching. And at that training, just a couple months ago, I actually did connect it back to serving people bigger in the realm of health coaching and help people really love the way they look and feel, because that's a huge part of my story. So I kind of fell into it in a different way, but I'm so thankful.
That is so great. For those that may not be aware of the model, could you give us a Cliff Notes version of what the model is?
It's your thoughts that create your results. And the way that they map it out is that when you have a circumstance in your life, we all live in our set of circumstances. So a circumstance is something that a million people could look at and label as a fact, and there's no question about it. So it's like the temperature is 70 degrees, kind of thing. And then it's the story or the thoughts that we tell ourselves that actually give meaning to our set of circumstances. And when you think a certain thought, it will create a feeling in your body. And your feeling is always what drives your action. And your actions are the things that you either do or don't do in support of a goal or, to create what you really want. And then your result is what's created by your actions. And so that, I know in our conversation, we'll give more concrete examples to that. I have a very funny one where that I'll share later in our chat, I'm sure. But yeah, so that's kind of like a high level or skin version of the model.
That's awesome. I was able to find the model through some podcasting a few years ago. and just really found that it was helpful to me as a mom, figuring out how I was managing my home, how I was managing my time, how I was using my thoughts to either improve all of those situations or like kind of be stuck. And so I think it's a great conversation that we can have today about utilizing, what we all already possess, right? Like our
Yeah.
thoughts and our actions.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I'll just share what I was gonna say before, but so my kids are 7, 5, and 2, and um I feel very like myself again. And I know what we're gonna be talking about is more in the weeds of like when you really don't feel like yourself through pregnancy and then that first year or two postpartum. Um, but last spring I was feeling, I'm back to feeling like the old Ellie and which I'm so thankful for. And last spring, I was having so much fun, like birthday parties and we had Easter, wedding celebrations, all these things. And I noticed that the scale was creeping up or my pants were feeling a little tighter, or, you know, just different things. And I stepped on the scale and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like 5 pounds heavier than where I really feel comfortable. And the first thought that my brain gave me was, this is menopause. This has got to be menopause. And so instead of taking responsibility for my actions and really you know, not eating chips at night or just making decisions that were more in alignment with giving myself space to love the way I look and felt in my body, my brain first was like, okay, we're going to conserve energy and take out the part of you cleaning things up to feel good again. And so I sat there thinking I'm powerless. I have no control over my results of my body. And so then I didn't change anything. I just kept watching Netflix at night and having a snack with Nick and um, you know, just going about everything that I was doing. And as soon as I caught myself and I was like, I wonder if this is a story that I'm just telling myself about where I am. And as soon as I did that and got curious about like how I might feel the next day if I cut the snack or if I, had one piece of cake or what, not every day or, whatever it was, because we weren't just for whatever reason. I think our birthdays are all really concentrated in like a couple months in the spring. Um, but all that melted away quickly. And it was like the result changed the second that I changed my thought and got into more of a curious kind of posture, which is so interesting. So, yeah.
I love how you interrupted that pattern because it is so habitual. And a lot of times we're not even conscious of our thoughts. And once we pay attention to that, we gain more control and ownership of our situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you give us some examples of how you have used these tools in loving the way that you look and feel kind of like directly postpartum?
Yeah. So I will say before I had the tools, with my first, she was measuring small. And so my doctor told me that I needed to go on a modified bed rest and really pick up my calorie intake. And I remember asking him, and I'm like I love eating healthy things. I love taking good care of myself. And movement is really important to me. So I was like, this is going to be really hard. Um, but I asked him what kind of calories he meant. And he said, if it were summer, I would probably have you have a blizzard every day from Dairy Queen kind of thing, like just pack it on. And I was just like, I think bug eyed. And my husband that night took me out for like a heavy Thai dinner. And then he bought me a blizzard. He was like, we'll eat this. And I just like it didn't feel good. And so I got to the end of that pregnancy. Um, B was perfect, a little small, 6'1", I think. And then after being my first, I had no idea what I was walking into. I had no idea of the hormone changes that would be coming. I remember at her 10 to 14 day postpartum well check, uh, the pediatrician being like the first person that I talked to that was not in my family, where I had a human being in front of me who asked me how I was doing. And I'm pretty sure I broke into tears and was just like, I think I made a mistake. I'm not sleeping. I'm changing. I don't know my body. Like, this is all just so much. And he said, wow, I'm really glad that you shared that with me. And, it's okay. And um, he was just like such a warm and responsive kind of person. And from there, I will say, I don't think I just really put one foot in front of the other and took care of myself. But I will say having the tools when I delivered my third of being able to use the model, like it just made everything feel a lot smoother where I could actually journal out my thoughts right away, notice that these were just thoughts coming through and to not feel like I needed to, like my being didn't get totally gripped onto all of them and run away with into rabbit holes, I guess. And so it just made the process a lot lighter and to just know that one day at a time, one step at a time, one meal at a time, whatever it is, taking care of yourself postpartum is such a journey of being with yourself and holding yourself in that discomfort. And I felt like myself again so much faster after delivering Nora. So it's an interesting comparison to be able to make from before and after having those tools.
It's so great to hear your experience and what it looked like for you as you gained that knowledge. What is your three-part system and how can that benefit new moms as they are postpartum in that situation?
Yeah. So the way that I like to work with clients or even, use for myself is noticing, helping people gain deeper body awareness. Um, and specifically if someone has a goal like, with someone that has a house goal, I would say using a hunger scale is huge. And that's not just for losing weight. Like a hunger scale is something that can just help you really honor eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're feeling close to full. And, that's actually the secret of the Okinawa Blue Zone region and how they just have longevity. And so, I like to mention that because it's something, it's a really critical tool to be able to honor your own like needs physically. Um, which I think also helps you tap into like giving yourself what you need emotionally and spiritually and in other areas of life too. So that's a huge component. I will say the second part of my process is thought work. So really sitting with someone and going deeper on some of the thoughts that they're having. So I think applying that to postpartum, I remember my mother-in-law asking how I was doing and like really looking at me like deep in the eyes and just saying like, how are you? Um, and again, just like breaking down into tears, not like full on hot mess, but like crying a little bit and just saying like, I feel like I don't know my body anymore. Or like, I feel like I don't recognize the Ellie that's left postpartum. Um, and so being able to like sit with someone who's in that space and then asking like, okay, and let's go a little bit deeper. Like what else is coming up for you? And then picking out a thought that would be worth modeling through. So someone can be like, okay, these are the feelings and the actions that are actually coming from having those thoughts. Um, so I love that part. And then the third one is actually refining like your daily habits or your own process that you follow. So it's really customized and tailored to the individual. Because different things feel good for different bodies.
Oh, the hunger cues like really hits home for me. I felt like when I was breastfeeding, there was so many times I would get real shaky if I hadn't had proper protein intake. And I just remember feeling, how is this going to like, help me when I feel like I'm overeating? And so like kind of recognizing that I wasn't overeating, my hunger cues were real and I was producing milk. And so I was also burning calories through lactation
Yeah.
and trying to honor the nutrients that my body actually needed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And as someone, I probably should have given a deeper introduction at the beginning, but I have like a very deep cyclical dieting background from my young 20s. And I had gotten to a place before we decided to start a family where I felt so good in my body and felt afraid of like the weight gain and then wondering if it would come back down. And that does, especially with the first one, like it does get in the way of you wanting to listen to hunger cues because you're like, not that I was never trying to be on a diet. I had given myself permission to like take care of the human being that was growing in me. But those thoughts are definitely real thoughts that can come up. And when you're trying to honor your hunger cues and you have um, old patterns from before, I think it can be really hard to like give yourself to feel safe enough to give yourself what you really needed when it felt like either way more than you would usually have or think you need, or like, why does my body want all this red meat right now? Or like, why does it not want payment when you get aversions or, whatever it is, it's so different for each person. But yeah, super interesting. And so helpful to be able to pair together noticing your thoughts around using a hunger, like following a hunger scale.
And when you honor your emotional needs when it comes to hunger, I find that your body also responds more positively, right? So, in thinking that it's my son's birthday, cake is one of the things that we love to share. And my first, when my son was 1 years old, that was the first time we had introduced him to any sort of sugar with his little
Oh,
smash cake. And he was double fisting the cake like you've never seen, like ate the entire thing, but it was really good cake. It's like my mom's white cake recipe. And all of us were like, this is really good cake. And feeling like letting yourself emotionally appreciate the cake and celebrate, I think that it functions differently in your body than if you're eating for other reasons. Tying the emotional and the physical together will almost like trigger your metabolism to work for you instead of
oh,
just like always hating yourself if you're enjoying something that's highly caloric.
Yeah.
yeah.
And translating that too to your body, I've heard before you can't hate yourself skinny. You have to be in a place of acceptance before you even get to your celebrated goal. Can you talk a little bit more about feelings and how that impacts what you're doing?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I got chills too, Sarah, when you were talking because I just have to add one thing to that. We used to live in Fort Collins, which is like the brewery center of Colorado for sure. And maybe, I mean, it's like that's just like a way of life. And I've never been a big drinker, but I always told Nick, I was like, when I feel like when I get it from the source of where they made it, it feels like healthy and like my body does process it so differently. Where it's like, it is, I think there's so much more than just putting food in your mouth that helps you metabolize it differently. So I love what you just said about that. And, um, yeah. So Jen, I think when we think about setting a goal, like it was not long after, I will be very honest. I mean, I love feeling really good in my body. And I think that you move differently through the world. I think you connect differently with people. Um, and having a spacious mind and being able to connect with myself and other people and spiritually like really well is really important to me in helping other people do that. Um, and I think when you set a goal for yourself, whether it's postpartum or any time of saying like, okay, I really want to like lose 20 pounds, for example, or 10, whatever it is, I think we think when we get there that we'll feel like calmer or more confident or like freedom around your body weight and food and thoughts around that. And if you don't start to practice some of those feelings that you think you're going to feel in the future, you'll hit your goal in a way that is just not sustainable because you get there and you're still craving feeling those things. When really your feelings are things that you need to practice every day. And it's not toxic positivity. It's not that and saying I'm just going to feel positive all the time. It's instead for, a few minutes every day, I'm going to practice feeling like awed by something or calm or curious, open, the things that we all want to feel are joy. And when you give yourself permission to build up safety around feeling those things, even when you haven't yet reached your goal, it'll actually make the goal come to you a lot faster, which is really counterintuitive. But I've experienced time and time again happens, and it feels like magic. It really does. So,
When you take the ownership and realize your goal for the reasons that are like purely motivated by your intentions, I also feel like you are able to kind of soar, right? Like if the reason that you're trying to lose this postpartum weight is to impress others, meet a certain date, okay, well, by 6 weeks, I want to, be wearing my pre-maternity clothes again. It always seems to fall flat. But if you're able to kind of come at it with some intentions, like you said, like, I want to feel I want to feel beautiful in my body and I want to feel confident. I want to be able to interact with my children and the world in a way that serves others and, brings beauty to the world, not in a way that you're like showing off your mom bod or your physique or anything, but just in a way that's like really honoring for your soul and your spirit and your body.
I feel like this ties right into being mindful about the journey and the pregnancy and the postpartum. If you set those intentions or find your why beforehand, you're able to draw back to it when you need that motivation or support. And like you said, just narrowing down those reasons of why it's important to you to look or feel a certain way.
yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I've experienced both. I've experienced having wanting certain goals, not really in the realm of health, but in other parts of my life that were motivated by like proving something or just something that I didn't really even want. And then when I finally got safe enough to say, okay, it's okay for me to not hit that milestone, um, and then realign to my values, it's like, oh my gosh, something even more amazing was waiting for me to go after in another area of life. So it's your intentions and your values are huge pieces in all of this.
You've mentioned feeling safe a couple times, certain people that have come to you and you feel safe, or allowing yourself to feel safe to process these reasons. How can we teach ourselves to feel safe?
Yeah. So I have gotten really I've learned a lot about regulating through my own coach over the last year. And I didn't realize until I started really slowing down and being with myself that I was operating from a lot of stress. And so I think this um I didn't realize that the slower I moved, meaning like energetically, or the more that I like listened to my thoughts and gave myself space to really notice like how I was feeling physically, where my thoughts were, what was going on. I love operating at a higher speed. And I like being a taskmaster. I like getting a bunch of things done. But I feel like I'm so much more efficient and able to make more clear decisions in all ways the more that I slow down and really like come at it we call it from my CEO brain, when I just like feel really calm in my body. Um, and so that was definitely a practice. Like at the beginning, I was like, this feels counterintuitive, or it feels just kind of like weird to slow down and not make decisions out of stress anymore. But so much of us operate in a way where we don't even know that we're doing that until you kind of draw a line or start practicing, just slowing down in your body. And one of my favorite ways to do that. So I have a 500-hour yoga teacher training background. And so I also bring some of that into the body awareness piece with like walking people through just even 1 or 2 minute meditations to just get really present in their bodies, because when your body is relaxed, there's not really room for stress to live there anymore. And so that to me, as you're growing through pregnancy and then as you're going through all these changes postpartum, the more that we can spend just even a couple minutes a day of really noticing, like, okay, how does when I put my awareness down, like in my tailbone area and work my way up my spine, like, how am I actually feeling, or what aches and pains are kind of existing in my back? Like the back was a big one for me, but like the more that we can really do that, the mind actually grounds down into your body. And so it doesn't have the chance to give you all these overwhelming thoughts as frequently.
Would you be willing to walk us through one of those short relaxation meditation?
Yeah, just right on the podcast.
I think so.
Hey,
Uh,
we'll do it with you.
yeah, okay, I'll do it with you guys. So, if your legs are crossed, I would ask you to just uncross them and get your feet on the floor. And if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. We can also just look at each other, whatever we want to do. But um, so to start, just notice where you are right now. And you can let the breath just fall out your mouth. And we're not going to try to change anything. We're just going to notice the texture of your breathing that feel short and shallow. Does the breath feel tight or does it feel more smooth? And your next breath in, I want you to let it draw your chest and your head up a little bit higher, as if there's a string pulling you up through your spine. And when you let the breath out, let it draw your seat a little bit deeper into your chair. And we're just going to keep following that. So every breath in is going to pull that string a little bit higher up towards the ceiling, drawing length through your spine. And then every exhale is going to bring you a little bit deeper into your body, through your chair, through the feet on the floor. We spend a lot of time holding our bellies in, and through pregnancy, through life, like this is a time where you can just let that go. And just notice your breath coming in and out and let it expand your belly. On your next breath in, let it draw your shoulders up to your ears. And then on your breath out, let your shoulders just melt down your back. And notice the space that it created between your ears. Okay. And when you're ready, you can let your eyes open again. And do you guys feel any different? I do. Like we should have started with this.
100% different. And every time I do a yoga meditation or, some of these deep breathing exercises, I'm baffled at my physical changes.
Yeah, good.
For sure. I think it was a great idea to actually do it mid-episode because we did see the contrast and feel the difference. And I think, like you said, the more we practice that, the more we'll be able to know when we need it or recognize it when we have it.
Yeah. And, the other thing, I'd love to leave this as a resource, but and maybe we can do like a follow-up training or talk about it. But my coach helped me create a safety anchor. And that is something where I was just thinking when you have these experiences of meditation and following your breath, there's something that you can come back to. Like I would be changing my daughter at her changing table and she'd be screaming or have an accident on the changing table while I'm mid-change. And just the things that you think could throw you off. But I remember just standing really firm and imagining myself in like mountain pose on my yoga mat and just feeling like so grounded and just being able to weather just the rises and falls of your internal experience throughout the day. So this concept of a safety anchor is locking in this feeling of a time that you can remember feeling just so calm and grounded and free, or whatever those feelings are that you really would love to be feeling or that you imagine feeling when you feel like yourself again postpartum. it's locking those into a physical form. So for me, I like to just clasp my hands together. And when I do that, it's like this physical representation of the memory that I have kind of stored in that, if that makes sense. So it's something that's really helped me to like stay calm and carry on.
And something you can come back to so easily in any moment. I was thinking about just how relaxed and wonderful we all felt breathing just for a couple minutes. And could we attach that to another habit? Could we brush our teeth and then just take 30 seconds to breathe? And so we really look forward to brushing our teeth because we also get to come back to that grounded, like really internal awareness, like everything just feels so peaceful and so measured. How often in our lives as mothers do we have that feeling of contentment? And so thank you for sharing, like clasping the hands, doing those deep breaths, kind of focusing on those thoughts.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I love the idea of attaching it to another habit. And one that helps me is just anytime I go to the bathroom, because I'm already like sitting, the kids at this stage, they're not usually with me. I have 30 seconds to myself. And so it's just a time where you can like ground yourself for a few minutes. And it happens a few times throughout the day. So you can just have that opportunity. But yeah, I think attaching it, brushing your teeth, shower, anytime you go in the bathroom. Yeah, I love that suggestion.
Thank you so much. And you shared some resources with us. Was there anything else that you had for our listeners, either a book or another expert that you have really appreciated?
Yeah. So there's a book called The Big Leap. And that one is, I think, a little bit, it's well suited for entrepreneurship, but the idea in it is allowing yourself to feel really good at the edge of your comfort zone and really like embracing the positive feelings, which I think can be kind of hard to do sometimes when you feel like you have so far to go in your journey or in your goals, or when your body just doesn't feel like you in the moment. And so giving yourself space to feel like just really alive and awake, is something that can really help you continue the process of self-care. So I think that's a great resource. And then I'd be happy to share my website. I have a couple other friends I'd recommend, following on social media, or I can share my social media account. So yeah, there's a lot of great stuff out there.
So great. We'll put those in the show notes. And every week we share a Mom Squad secret. So we'll end with that. It's from Nora this week. And she says, receive chiropractor adjustments when you are pregnant to make sure your baby is in good alignment, especially when birth is near. And just as we've talked about the physical and mental and how those connect and with our goals and just really taking care of our bodies and our minds.
If you want to share a Mom Squad secret, we'll also have the link to that Facebook page in our show notes.
Thank you so much, Ellie. It was great to meet you. Was there any last thing you wanted to share with our listeners or impart before you go?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite thoughts to just try on as you're moving through everything is just there is no rush. Like there's no rush to change. There's no rush to fix anything. And just let yourself go through the journey of pregnancy and birth and postpartum, just knowing that there's a little circle around you and you're right where you're meant to be. So
thank you so much,
that.
Ellie. I hope we can all take that home with us today. There is no rush.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. We hope you've been elevated and inspired by this week's expert.
Subscribe today so you never miss an episode. And please share our podcast or post on your social media so that other moms and dads-to-be can also have the best birth.
Please note that the information provided is based on the expert's insights and personal experience. It is not intended as medical guidance. Please seek the advice of your medical provider as it applies to your specific condition.